bless this place.
Can I hear an amen? Today, we're talking about mastery. And there's reasons for that. There are three worlds, which I've shared here before. There are three worlds generally that we could say we live in. There's heaven, there's Eden, and there's earth. Heaven is the state of mind we think of as it's a place God lives. All three of these worlds actually coexist right here. We only are aware of one, sometimes bits of another, but generally our focus is on one. It's kind of like you can have a few different documents up on your computer at the same time, but one, you can have them, opened as it were, but one is called up on your screen. So we're choosing the vantage point. We're choosing the awareness that we happen to be in at any given time. Mastery, the reason I say mastery is because mastery is something you can live or are living in any one of those three. You won't be human when you're in heaven per se. When you completely absorb back into God consciousness, you're not still in your body. But in your body, you can have awareness of God consciousness, just not the totality of it. We can also be in Eden. That's a little easier than being in complete heaven consciousness while on earth. We can be in Eden while on earth. But really, these three worlds are lived by three parts of us: our human self, our Christ selves, you could say, and then our complete divinity. The master within us coexists in all of these, because we don't, as humans, we can choose to be sleeping or awake. Humans can choose to be sleeping, which means you're actually living. So there's earth, there's Eden, there's heaven, but earth has two parts: a hellish-like life or a, decent, like a heaven-like life on earth. We can have either one on earth. You will only have one in Eden. You'll only have one in heaven. But on earth, the world of duality, you get to choose. If you're choosing to be awake, more self-aware, more self-conscious, and working on healing, then you actually get to live a God-like life or heaven-like life or Eden-like life while on earth. It's called a happy dream versus a nightmare. But you're still on earth. There's still density. There's still meals you're going to have, or plans you make, an arrangement you make, and a house you might buy, or whatever. The stuff of this world. There's still a certain amount of doing. In Eden, in heaven, there really isn't. There's being. So how can we do on earth without losing ourselves? It's called being in the earth, but not of the earth. Can it be done? Well, that's why we're all studying what we study. We're all trying to remember, or it's actually a remembering how to do that. We think it's a learning how, but it's a remembering. But as soon as you get it done well enough, you're actually shifting into Eden. You don't just get an e-ticket to Eden. Eden, that worked. Okay, so you don't just get a pass or a ticket to Eden. You do the work we're doing, and before you know it, you're there. Just like, wow. Where'd that come from? We just wake up one morning and we're there. Not because it just happened, through our efforts, through our awakening. And our awakening is a two-part process, inner and outer. The inner, prayer, meditation, healing, affirmation, and so on. The outer, being a nice person. Practicing the things we learn on the inside. So I developed this term. It's a term we all know, but I started developing the use of it, mastery, living mastery. Because for us to wake up from being sleeping humans to awaken humans is like being a living master. No, you don't have to have a turban. You don't have to be an ascended master. It means, are you living the God principles right here and now in practical ways? So I'll share some ideas about that in just a moment, because there are things that I refer to as attributes of masters, but I'd like to make it clear this is all very, very practical. Mastery basically means this. Mastery means having a connection with God, prayer, meditation. Absolutely, you have to have the inner life. You don't have to be perfect at it. You don't have to always see colors and sparkles and the heavens open and angels communicating with you. It's just have a form of spiritual communion, prayer, meditation, whatever works for you. We actually think that we succeed, bless you, at being prayerful and meditative when we get results, when we get the special effects. It's working the whole time. Just we don't know it. Layer upon layer is being peeled away. And some of us have used pinholes to put punctures through that veil, and we describe, I see some light through that veil. I see some, and we all go, oh, they got to see light through the veil, meaning purple colors around people and sparkly, glittery things. That's just special effects. It's beautiful, but it's not the goal. The goal is no veils. So just because somebody has put a pin through 10 veils and can see a little light doesn't make them better than you who sees no light. You might only have 3 veils. You just haven't pinholed it yet. And that doesn't matter. More importantly is the less veils. So the person who has no special effects in their third eye and so on, but is being a nice person, is closer than the person who's still, rude or unhelpful in this world, but seeing special, beautiful, sparkly things. Hitler saw some beautiful, sparkly things and it probably wasn't good. That doesn't mean he's a good person. Are we practicing this stuff? So mastery to me means connecting with God. Absolutely. Mastery also means that we integrate that presence. We don't just talk to it, we more and more become that presence. It's got to stick. It's got to make a difference. You've heard me say this several times. Generally people don't realize it, but the 12-step program as well as Buddhism and any great teachings really only have 3 steps, 3 parts to them, which is connect with God, let it make a difference in your life, and then bring that difference to others. Nothing more needs to be said. If you're doing those 3, you don't need 12 steps. You don't need all the sutras. If you're doing those 3 things, connect with God, all the other bits, the sutras, the teachings, the gospels, they're just telling you how to do those 3 things. That's all, so let's do them. Connect. And you're not far apart from God. We know we're not separate, so it shouldn't be complicated to get back. Relax. We need to go easy on ourselves, and yet there is some doing that has to happen. We don't go so easy that we just don't even bother to pray and meditate. Well, after all, we're not separate, so I guess it'll just take care of itself. Well, while we're on earth, we can have a good life. We can have a happy dream versus a nightmare. So one of the reasons we're doing this is to help speed up the time of being apart from God that never really happened, but it feels like it is. So when we do our work, we're speeding up the remembrance. But we're also making our lives nicer while we're here. And being a difference, being an example to others so they can ease their lives. It's one thing, to stand around and say it's but an illusion, none of it matters. There are some cults and sects of people, ancient and modern, that have taken that attitude. It's an illusion, so it doesn't matter. In fact, I remember in The Lion King, come to think of it. I've seen the movie only like 1.5 times now, but I do remember that point where the wise one smacks the lion on the head and he says, ow, that hurt. He says, well, why does that matter? It's in the past. It's like you can't just pretend. You can't just go, well, because this guy's like depressed, nothing matters. So he smacks him on the head and he's like, oh, why did you do that? Well, it doesn't matter. It's in the past. He's trying to tell him, you still have to deal with this stuff in a practical way. Sure, it's in the past, but that's just philosophy. When you really understand that, your heart will still be here for yourself and others in the present, what seems to be happening around us. This is all practical. Connect with God. Let it make a difference in who you are and what you think about yourself. And bring that difference to others. Isn't that perfect? That's what everything is about. It covers all bases. Well, masters, to say, well, it sounds kind of heavy to say we're masters. You're far more than masters, so why have a problem acknowledging that that's what you are? You don't have to walk around. You don't have to put on your business card. You're a banker and you're master. Under loan officer and master. It may not work in some workplaces. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm saying let's live this, not call ourselves this. Let's live this. So, in what way, shape, and form? In every way. So it's connect with God, let that integrate into your being, and then let it have an effect, but not just an effect in every way, not just for others, in every way for yourself and others. So mastery doesn't just mean I chant, I pray, and nor that I just hold presence, nor that I pray for you. It's also to play a song and move and dance the way we did. It's also being the best parent you can be. We don't often have workshops on how to be a better parent. A lot of us didn't have such things. But when I had children that were young, in those days, man, it was an incredible thing because I had to create. And I choose to create, as they say, our own reality. So For a playground, I bought a house that didn't have a yard. I found a way to clear this yard. I found a way to create this yard, found a way to put in grass that became this lush, thick lawn. I put in a segment where the children had a swing set and so forth. I created something for them. And in their bedroom, I gave them the master bedroom of the house so that I could fit the play things, the play school type things for them to climb on. I created an experience for them. They didn't just have a bedroom. I gave them the larger bedroom, not because I was overly spoiling. It was a playroom too. And there was no reason we needed more room than we needed. So it's like, let's just take the smaller room. Let's give them that one. So we did, creating an experience, like their own world. Is that making sense? You guys are good here. Look, you have what you need right here. In where we can and how we can, at this center and in our lives. Wherever we are, how can we be a great representative of God on earth? And I went so far as to, at night, instead of, okay, we're going to open a book. Once upon a time, there were 3 little bears, which I think is beautiful because you're sitting and you're paying attention and you're connecting with your child. I would say, girls, let's say a prayer. And we would pray, and then we would pray for guidance for a story. And it would just come through. And I swear I wish I had recorded them. It would just come through. They would be these brilliant stories, not of mine. Just God would give them. These amazing stories. And the stories would have songs and everything. Okay, once upon a time, and this and that and the other, and it'd be about these children out playing in the forest, and because we were living in the woods at the time, out in the forest, and this hole, and they fall in, and they can't get out unless they help one another to get out, and so on. Whatever, the moral of the story would be beautiful, but there would be songs. The children are at the bottom of this hole they fell in, and then they hear some music, and then a song would come to me. And it was like the Fern Children. We call them the Fern Children are now singing. And these children are down in this hole, and they can hear the song of the Fern Children. And the song would come through on the Fern Children telling these children how to get out of this mess they're in. Songs and all. We can do anything. I wasn't in any way a songwriter, but you are. What are you not if you're God? So we're men, we're women, we're tall, we're short. Nothing matters. We're everything we need to be. And we're everything we can be. One apostle says, I'm all things to all people. If we're filled with God, we can do and think anything. No landscape experience. You can walk into a situation and make a suggestion to a landscape designer that might be the most brilliant thing that came up that day. All we have to do is get self out of the way, and God comes, and it takes care of whatever's needed. Only in our minds are there limits. Only in our minds do we say, well, I would love that to be true, but I'm just a woman, or I'm just a man, I'm just a single mom or a single dad. I can't do this, I can't be that. We're everything, and we can rise to being everything, and that's what it means to be masters. In every way, shape, and form, I am here to manifest God's presence. So where do we come up with? And it's only in one limited little way. So we play these games on ourselves to belittle ourselves. So I'm going to share with you what typically are what I refer to as 12 attributes of a master. And, the ancient cultures, from Egyptian to Mayan to whatever, these Native American, Roman, all of them, there were teachers, spiritual leaders of these various groups on earth. And there were common people, as there are today. There are spiritual leaders, as there are today. And then there would be a few people that would sign up to be students of those teachers. That's the old way. The way is narrow, and only the few, make it to God, the old books used to say. Jesus says in A Course in Miracles that was totally a misunderstanding, because the truth is it's not few are called. All are called, only a few choose to listen. Only a few choose to walk through. That's why it's the few. We're learning now that we're all meant to wake up. And we're all capable of waking up and being what God created us to be. It's just that we don't choose to do it. The first attribute I would share with you of masters is love. Now, there's 12 attributes that I'll share with you. I may move through them all. It just depends on how it feels at the time, but I'm going to get through some of them. But the first one is love. It's not so much an action on how to be a master. It's the presence. Anything else that we talk about here in terms of attributes of being a good, masterful person, how to be God embodied, how to be a master, how to live the Christ life, they're all the same statement technically. How do we do this? The first is love. All the others are just ways to manifest the loving presence of God. Love comes first. The second one is focus. And shy of love, this is probably, well, that's why it's number 2 here. It's the most consistent one to make a difference between humans and masters that are still embodied, but humans and masters. Even students on the path of spirituality, they're sleeping humans and waking humans. But sleeping humans clearly are not doing a lot for their path. But we can even be students on the path and still be relatively lazy in our confidence in who we are. Masters aren't messing with that. And one of the distinctions between the sleeping person or student on the path and a master is focus. Masters do not mess around. They focus. They don't dilly-dally in what they do. They're focused. They're focused in their thoughts. You can't pray or meditate successfully if you have no focus. That doesn't mean you have to focus for 3 hours of meditation. Even successful focus for 1 minute is better than non-focused meditation for 3 hours. Focus. Focus in what you do. Focus on what you're thinking. Focus on how you pray, and focus on your future. Whatever it is that you're doing, do well, but stay focused. Focused is like Buddha said, a disciple of Buddhism or of the spiritual path who's really choosing to be awake can divide the Himalayas in 2. Or, as we heard in the scriptures, could say to this mountain, rise and go into the ocean, and it would do so. Focus. Focus also means unwavering faith in who you really are. Not the athlete, I'm this, and I don't mean the human, I want to succeed at something. I mean who you really are. That takes focus. Because it's easy to say, well, I'm going to start having a better life. It's time for me to change my life. I'm going to choose this, and no sooner do we choose it, something else steers us off. It's the same thing with the way people drive, the way people make love. Their minds can be many places. They're driving their car and they may not be in that place. They're trying to meditate and they can be 15 places at once. Just as soon as they say, that's it, from now on I'm going to meditate at 2 o'clock. The alarm goes off. How about 3? It's too early. 4, 5, 6, 7. Pretty soon at 7, I want to meditate at 7. I couldn't do the 2 o'clock thing. I'm going to meditate at 7. Oh, but now I got to get to work. This is what we do. We're all, failures at the New Year's resolutions in life. And that's not mastery. And I'm not saying you're not that. I'm saying you are that. We all are that. But we have to step up and start practicing it. Another one I'm going to go into, clarity I'll use next, because clarity means not only of mind, but clarity in your style of living. Clarity in conversation. What do you want? What do you not want? If I go to a restaurant, I eat relatively simple. I just like tortilla and cheese kinds of things. That's pretty much it. I just tell them I want, if I go to a Mexican restaurant, just a tortilla and cheese and put a lot of extra cheese and a lot of butter. That's all I want. Now I explain it very clearly. Tortilla, lots of cheese, butter. And then I also add what I do not want. I do not want a single presence of any form of vegetable or any dressing, even things that your chef finds to be attractive and beautiful to the plate. Now, I don't usually go that far overboard, but sometimes in humor I do. But my point is, don't just describe what you do want, also be clear of what you do not want in your life. Because if I tell the waiter, knowing that they're used to dressing up plates, he's technically right to bring it dressed up. He heard what I wanted, but he still puts what their traditional plates are. They put that together, whatever is right for them. So I want to be clear, because I would be in error to let you know I don't want specific things on that plate. Is that making sense? Okay. The next is efficiency. Masters, again, they don't dilly-dally. No time in history did a prophet or the leader of a community, like a shaman of a tribe or whatever, no time in history did they receive guidance to do some project or do something and then say, we'll get around to it eventually. That's just not the way they do it. Jeremiah, and then in the book of Jeremiah, and Jeremiah said to the Lord, I'll get to it. It doesn't happen that way. The tribe leader, the elders, the wise ones, the prophets, the goddesses, you get inspiration, you focus, and you go. And you don't do these things in a frenetic way. As soon as I say efficiency, it almost seems incongruent with spirituality. But we're not talking about type A personality. Efficiency actually means with less extraneous conversation, with less the confusions, with less miscommunications, you don't have to go. It's like living in Mercury retrograde all the time. Humans are the embodiment of Mercury retrograde. Mastery is let's trim that up. If you talk to a good astrologer, they will not say, do not have any conversations during Mercury retrograde. If they're good, they're going to say, you'll have to go over things twice to make sure it's clear. They'll say, write it down. They'll tell you how to manage yourself in Mercury retrograde. And I'm saying this is how we manage ourselves in human retrograde. Clarity. And that creates efficiency. Balance, clearly, is an affirmative piece of being in mastery because we want balance. We're males and females. We're tall and short. We're black and we're white. We're all these things. When I was in high school, they decided to do some interesting thing kind of in whatever class it was, history, sociology, or something like that. For one of the rare times I attended the class, I thought this is kind of intriguing because it wasn't about reading dry linear material. We were going to have a project. And I thought this is going to be cool because projects I could dig. So I went in there and they said, we're going to do a test. So they actually put us through a test where you answered not a typical IQ test. It was an IQ test geared for African Americans. To show you that if you're in a particular culture, you will always fail a different culture's opinion of what IQ is. Isn't that interesting? So this is opinion. IQ is an opinion of what's intelligent. And I scored high. Everybody failed it, and I was into my inner African American. You be this thing. Didn't hurt to listen to a lot of Earth, Wind, and Fire, but I had hung out with the few African Americans at this particular school. We hung out. Everybody at my school was like, your culture didn't matter. Everybody, hung out. It was like there was no racial kind of differences and that sort of thing in our school, fortunately. So all you have to do is tune into that thing. The single mother can know how to be whatever she perceives herself to be missing if she thinks it's a limited plight that she's experienced in. I just don't believe in that limited consciousness. Another, integration. A master cannot succeed. A master is not a master if they don't know how to integrate. What does that mean? It means a master knows how to recognize what's going on in their life and grab hold of the lessons from that particular thing. Masters don't say there's good and bad or wins and failures. We look at how to integrate what to learn from any experience. And I don't mean just in a shallow way, like, well, I guess there must be something I can learn there. I don't mean where you have to fight to extract a positive just to make yourself feel better. I mean in a very, very powerful way, extrapolating what you can get from that particular thing. Drawing the lessons that take you to another level. So you've come out of a marriage that was horrible, 20 years of this and that and the other, and you say, I don't even want to think about it. That's not mastery. Nor am I telling you to make yourself still be in love. But a master can say, what can I learn? And the lessons don't stop. 1 year they learn certain things they remember, and then 5 years later, another wave of lessons. And they're not hard lessons. What I mean is, what do you learn about yourself? What can you learn about communication? In my next relationship, I'm clear now that communication is going to be essential. It's going to be an absolute prerequisite. You see, whatever it is that didn't go well, I'm going to change this particular thing. The next, passion. Masters have passion. We often think of masters being these stoic individuals. Really, and you might, and that doesn't mean you're not a master just because you have a little bit more of a calm demeanor. That's okay. I'm only saying, generally speaking, these are the attributes. One of them is definitely passion. How could you not have passion when you know you have something to do today? If you know who you are, then you know there's something to do. There's not a lifelessness about us. There's not a complacency about us. When we're in our mastery, we have places to go, things to do. We're alive. And Again, it's not at a frenetic pace. It's not anxious like this. Gotta go, gotta do. It's focused. You're filled with the Spirit and you know where you're going and you know what you've got to do today. And life teaches us. Failures make us not want to do those things because we've been hit too many times with failure. We have personality types that get in the way, family upbringing that gets in the way. We have all kinds of stories that keep us from choosing to be the masters we're meant to be. So you can continue to be whatever made you not masterful, or you can choose to say, not today. Step up more. Who am I? I don't know. So God, you show me. Fill with that presence. I mean, a great artist can't. I mean, can you? I just can't even imagine like a Da Vinci or Michelangelo getting an inspiration and going, no, that's okay. That's going to take too long. Or that's going to, no, that's a lot of work. Or I'm probably not that good. Even if you're not, you can't stop it. Even if you have a little bit of, I don't know if I'm really that good. When you really feel the inspiration, you're going to go anyway. Moses said, no thanks, God. You better pick somebody else. He did. This is Moses, the spokesperson, prophet, teacher of an entire people. And still, he had this, I don't know, imagine, God, you probably picked the wrong person. So God says, then I'll give you an extra person to back you so you feel the confidence behind you. I'll give you someone else that helps you. Because Moses said, I'm slow of speech. They think it might have been a form of speech impediment, literally, or was it just anxiousness? Whatever it was, he ended up going through and becoming what we know to be a leader. When I've said this story before, but when I came to a time of coming out of high school and the question was asked, what kinds of things are you good at? What would you be able to do? I was clear. I don't know, what kinds of jobs, because we're supposed to be looking at jobs and or going to college or whatever we're going to do in life. What is it you're going to do? And I have no idea. There's no careers per se. I mean, what am I going to be, a banker, or a tax person, an IRS official? I mean, look at me. So, whatever, right? So it's just, how's it going to work out? So process of elimination, one thing I was clear about. I like people and I'd like to help. So now I'm looking at the only category that fits. And those are things like minister. And now 30-something years ago, guys, 35 or whatever years ago, the job descriptions didn't fit because people that were wanting to be helpful had to be doctors or priests or whatever. And I was like, well, none of those really, I'm not going to be studious enough to be a doctor and priest. Come on, look at me. So none of these are fitting. All I did know very clearly was what I would not do. I do not want to travel, and I do not want to do things that I have to do in front of other people. Swear to God. There's two things I will not do. Way too nervous and so, about in front of other people, way too shy. Can't do it, there's no way. Sports and stuff, it was always, butterflies before a game, that sort of thing. Just being out on the field in front of people, that's how shy I was. I mean, having a childhood like I didn't make it easier by any means, just in that note. But so that's what we have, is we have our history telling us no. And there's a saying, you can have butterflies, but teach them to fly in order. That's mastery. That's focus. You push through it. So what I'm leading to is, even though I was afraid, even though I was inhibited at the idea of doing this kind of work, it's all I do is travel and talk to people in front of groups. So what went wrong with that little order to the universe? Because sometimes, and I should just say often, it is the case that your soul's purpose will have some seeming obstacles. Those obstacles do not mean you should not go that direction. You are a master, so you're supposed to ask yourself this. Not all the doors open, so I'll go. There's a block. I don't know how many there are, but there's blocks, so that's a sign to not go. Masters do not do such things. So I realized what happens is when there's obstacles, you have to ask yourself, the goal that what I knew was that I wanted to be helpful. So that's now my goal, my light at the end of the tunnel. The obstacles are, but you're going to have to speak in front of people and travel. Great. I could say, then forget it. What you have to do is ask yourself if the light at the end of the tunnel is greater than the obstacle before it. That's all you have to do, because masters know how to divide and conquer. And I'll come to that in just a second. But you don't succumb to it. You don't just acquiesce to every little block or issue. Your master, that's what everybody does. That's not what masters do. Masters will ask, and is there a great enough purpose beyond that to walk through it? If you and I are in a partnership and we have so much water under the bridge that going to couples counseling is going to be futile because it's going to be more work than the payoff. There is no payoff. We're done. Then it may not be worth it for us to do so. That's neither good nor bad. I'm just weighing it based on the payoff. Or If we've only had some minor struggles about communication, we're having a difficult time. But I still love you, and I know that there's enough left in the relationship over here. The obstacle, we had an argument last night. I refuse to forgive you, or I refuse to say I'm sorry. Whatever it is it worth it to hold this, or is this greater? You see what I'm saying? So ask. So that's what masters do. They ask questions. They ask why, what, how. We ask, we investigate, we dismantle things that seem to be bigger than us. The last few, masters, obviously, they have to have self-awareness and they're mindful. Self-awareness. How could you be a master if you do not know who you are, what makes you tick? That's why the healing path is part of the spiritual path. We have to know what makes us tick, why we react or do what we do when we do it. Another is to have an open mind and open heart. Another is patience. That's a really bizarre one for some of us, because when you really get it, when you really, really get it, you understand this world and all its games, and you understand how to create things, it's hard to sometimes stay a notch slower for the people around you, to kind of keep at their pace instead of just like, here we go. It's a difficult thing to be a leader, and you are when you're awakening to mastery. You can work at a local shop somewhere doing something, whatever, but your awareness level, when you start to get it, it's not just plow through everybody, and how are we doing with that? And, in some way, shape, or form, you're asking to keep pace with everybody else. So you're not losing that you stand out, because you are what you are. But at the same time, you're checking in. Whether it's with your children or the people around you, you check in. And it's that you can create your own ways to figure that out. With my kids in growing up, I used to say, I'm very clear. I'm very clear about what we're doing and where we're going and maybe household rules or whatever. But I still used to say, and anytime I'm implementing a rule or calling you on something, you're allowed a rebuttal. You're allowed to step up and say, yeah, but, and throw something at me because I may have missed something. See, that's a way of me enforcing a humility on myself, because I might be missing something. Okay? Even with the board that we work with here, you could ask them. Maybe my perspective would be too narrow, but it seems to me that I ask, what do you guys think? I don't say, well, I'm the spiritual leader, we're doing that. I always check in and always ask for a group opinion. Doesn't that generally? Yeah, cool. Glad you agree with me on that one. I was on the spot there. Thank you for coming through. Because as much as mastery is about brilliance and love and power and focus and dismantling the stuff of this world, the last couple items here are really about service. There's patience. The next one is service. How can we be helpful? And the next one is giving, how to share and how to give. Because masters know how to create things, but you don't go, I created another thing, mine. I created another thing, mine. We create things and we go, and would you like some? Create things, would you like some? Create some more things, would you like some? Okay? In everything we do. Because masters recognize we only really integrate or become that which we receive and are willing to share. If you don't share it, you actually had it on loan and it's gone. Even when we pray, even when we have the most profound meditations, the idea at the end of meditations is you just built up an energy. You should do something with it. So extend the prayers to others to help, share. Even prayer energy, not just things, even prayer energy. You receive amazing meditations. You should always end meditations with imagining what you've received today being gifted to others. Troubled areas of the world, family members, whomever. You're meditating, oh, inner peace, oh, it's amazing. I feel tranquility. I see sparkly lights. Fantastic. Don't get up. Don't leave. You better extend it to others, or you will only have had it in that meditation. It'll start to dissipate as soon as you walk away. Just like when you remember your dreams when you're sleeping, and then you wake up and you remember them a bit. If you think, well, I'll write them down, but first I have to shower, they will start to disappear. We always say, no, this one's so clear. I'll remember, no matter how vivid. The only reason it seems vivid is because you're still partly on the other side. So the more we become conscious, shower and do whatever, we've lost the dream. And that's the same here. Your meditations are lost if you don't extend them before you get up and move about. Those are attributes. I'm going to close with sharing what I refer to as states of consciousness or sort of little, they're just concepts, okay? They're concepts, not key words, concepts. One of them, this is where we get into, and by the way, when I mentioned focus, and I want to go back just one last thing. I want to say regarding focus, I always use the Alice in Wonderland metaphor where Alice speaks to the Cheshire Cat and says, Cheshire Cat, can you tell me which road I'm supposed to take? And he says, well, that depends on where you'd like to go. And she said, well, I'm not sure. He said, then doesn't matter which road you take. Humans love to be out on the water. They no oar, no sail, nothing, and wonder why life isn't happening. Masters say, raise the sail, put the, oars in the whatever you have available, the motor, turn the motor on, whatever it happens to be. Masters don't just sit and wait for stuff to happen. That doesn't mean you force. So one of the first concepts I'm sharing with you about mastery, one of the first concepts, not keywords, is that masters get an inspiration, they focus, and they go. Now a master, a good analogy I often use is a fire pit, if you've ever done fire walking. Well, you've got this couple thousand degrees or whatever, and you're going to walk across. You are not supposed to walk because you want to be first. You're not supposed to walk because you don't want to be last. You're not supposed to walk because you want to walk right after so-and-so walk. No reasons you're supposed to walk if you do this right, other than you feel ready. That's like, in other words, it's an analogy of, I got the inspiration, it's time. And you get up. Now, once you get up to that fire pit, you are supposed to focus. You are not supposed to dilly-dally. You focus. Don't think about other things. You don't go halfway across the pit and go, I wonder if I should be walking across this pit. No, you focus and you motor. You move, you go. There's a saying among some people, they say, pray and move your feet. That's roughly the same meaning. Inspiration, focus, and go. But it doesn't mean forcing, because masters know another concept, which is change what you can, accept what you cannot. Have you done all that you can? Yes. And it's still not happening? No. Then let go. On the seventh day, God rests. So it's okay. And that's a tough one to remember, because part of that prayer is, and the wisdom to know the difference. Right? So what are we doing? We force things that aren't even inspired. Right? We have this whole thing all jumbled up. We force things that aren't even inspired. It's get an inspiration, then focus, and then go. And when you see dead ends, ask yourself if there are things inside to heal, to get that dead end to move. Ask if there's things on the outside you can do to alter the situation. And then that's it. If it still doesn't give, am I not resting enough? Am I not sitting enough? Because divine timing might be an issue here. Another one. There's inspiration, focus, and go. There's this one I probably talk about as much or more than any others, which is get the ball rolling. It's somewhat the same as the other, but just get the ball rolling. It's kind of similar to inspiration, focus, go, but have you done anything at all to get the ball rolling? This one is the analogy I most often use is with friends, people that work with me, people that work for me. We, we'll have a situation where somebody will say, I'll say, could you do me a favor and change that flight? And they'll say, well, no, you can't change flights this late in the game. I say, well, just call anyway. Well, no, you can't. It doesn't work. So as they know, after working with me long enough, have you called? And then they almost always come back and go, I cannot believe it. And the lady even said, we don't know why, but it's the computer saying, okay, get the ball rolling. When we know who we are, it actually works. It's like the Jedi mind trick. You will not need to see our paper. We will not need to see your papers. It's when you're in the right consciousness, the world tends to love and support that. I'm not saying you're manipulating the world. It's, have you tried anything to get that situation to change, including a conversation that was strained, a relationship that had some recent difficulties? If you want to even heal things, get the ball rolling. Someone says, well, I have some backache and nobody seems to be able to fix it. Have you tried such and such? No. Have you tried such and such? No. Have you tried such and such? No. Why? Well, I just heard that other people said that didn't work. You haven't done it. You must try something. And as far as I'm concerned, I believe in hitting things from all sides. Approach it from as many ways as you can, because somewhere in there's another piece of unraveling. We think it's all, the one thing's supposed to unravel it all. We don't realize every prayer, every action, every forgiveness, it's peeling away the layers. We just like to see it all at once, and it sometimes isn't going to work that way. The last couple items. Do know the truth, but respect the illusion. The truth is you are as God created you. The illusion is it doesn't seem like it. I refuse to forget the truth of who I am. I refuse to forget that. So my job is to know who I am. And if I start to forget, I might as well ask the source of it. God, I'm forgetting. When I have an issue no issue in my life ever has been about something outside. It's always been about me perceiving myself or others other than God created them to be. In war, in another lifetime, you might have slain someone. You couldn't have if you knew who they were and who you were. If you felt guilt about it and created them coming back to slay you in another lifetime, it couldn't happen if you knew who they were and who you were. Knowingness, it unravels everything else. Know the truth, but do respect the illusion. I'm a perfect holy child of God. I'll never have to eat, sleep, or breathe again. No, respecting the illusion means, and isn't that funny? I'm a holy, perfect child of God. I'm not even a body. I'm not limited. I have no past, no future. I'm just the perfect presence of peace. And yet, McDonald's is calling. Laugh at it. This is ridiculous. Isn't this funny that I should... And that's okay. Because your ability to laugh at it actually helps to forgive it. More than judging it and saying, I mustn't. See, that judgment, that intense, I must not, isn't actually God as much as being able to laugh at how silly we are, pretending that we're limited beings. Keep things light. And masters always live as though it's their last day, and simultaneously as though they'll be here forever. Being here forever means you're going to be responsible. But doing things as though it's your last day means with gusto and purpose, and you're going to get to it. You're not going to put things off. You're going to do what you can right now. So if it wasn't obvious and wasn't heard, mastery is about living with gusto, obviously. We wait for inspirations and we focus on all that. We go, we get the ball rolling. It sounds very active. But mastery coming from a place of inspiration means there's also a peace that surpasses understanding. We're not anxious. We as masters, we're not anxious. We're not frenetic. There's a place of just clarity and knowingness. And it's profound because it carries you. And people will know. Your kids will know. When you say yes, it's yes, and it's no. They'll get that you're clear. Back to one of the attributes was clarity. Our kids will know that. Our employees will know that. People in the world will know that. And they're not always happy with that. People do not like clear people. People do not like people with purpose, and because you also mirror to them that they're not that thing. But it's also they're just not accustomed to people that just know. Whenever there's a leader, whether it's in a ball team or the leader of a band, it can become very intimidating to the other band members. Usually it causes bands to break up because of that particular leadership role. But it isn't done in any kind of harsh way. If we're good masters, we also know how to keep a pulse on things around us and what we need to change to keep things nice and light. Please take a few centering breaths. And as we're centering in, center into the affirmation. Let's remember that masters, we must become masters here before we can be masters anywhere else. We have to awaken to mastery. And masters are constantly drawing in the presence of God. Of myself, the little self, I do nothing. I choose to step up to the mastery God creates me to be. So we fill up. We let the presence of God affect us, and we march forth into the world strong, loving, powerful, inspired. If this moment is an initiation of life for me, if this moment, like the ancients that used to walk, crawl, just ride to initiatory temples so that they could become masters, we're in one of those temples now. If I'm being initiated right now into being a master, what does that look like? For the next few minutes only, we will explore that. We're in a temple where we've just done what we need to do to initiate becoming masters. That means we were asked to look at our little selves square in the eye and say, not today. It means that we're willing to recognize that we are as God created us to be, which means we have presence and purpose. And as we leave this temple, we're told, if you choose now to live as the Hierophant, the master, the priest, priestess, whatever it may be, whatever temple you imagine, what is it going to look like? When we go forward, there will be temptations to have arrogance. We're better, we're special, when in fact, we're just everybody's true self, and we choose to live it for ourselves. And we have the same weaknesses, frailties calling us. We just don't choose to listen as often as we did when we were in forgetfulness. That's what we won't do. What will we do? Imagine now we leave here with the power to know how to hold the presence of love and focus and clarity, brightness, efficiency, a deeper understanding. We're effective. That's what efficient means in part. We're effective. We focus and go. We get things done. Not with anxiety, but with center and power. It's beautiful. What things haven't we done that we need to go get done? Projects that we haven't completed? Things we said we're always going to do? Then do it or don't do it. Masters don't wish, they choose. So do it or don't. Go home and put away forever things you are resolved that you will not end up doing. You're not made a failure, you're a master. You'll integrate that energy that was wasted on the things you were about to do or could have done someday. All of that will get recycled into what you are willing to go and do now. And don't put as much energy into the things of 20 years from now as much as what's before you. Inspiration, focus, and go. It's not just a suggestion, it's our destiny. If we choose not to do this for any reason, we don't have the support, we don't have the confidence, for any reason, people around us won't agree, then it's just buying into the same old thing. Why would we do that if it's our destiny? We're going to do it eventually anyway. Why not now? So we are the presence of God. We are here to manifest that presence. How? In every way we choose. You're an engineer. You are an accountant. You are a beautiful male and female. You are strong. You are vulnerable in a good, healthy vulnerability. Humble, courageous, confident. All these things. Not ego strokes. These are attributes of living the presence of God. And as we leave here today, like the old Kung Fu TV show, when Kwai Chang leaves the monastery, you must go and live the life now. So how are we going to do that? The monastery released the Shaolin monks. Jesus released his apostles and said, now you have to go and do this work. Some of us in this room will take this more seriously than others. Again, it's the same destiny for all of us. And mastery, remember, is not about doing per se. It's about doing with heart, doing with inspiration. So in this moment, we close with prayer, because in mastery, God is the first and the last. Father, Mother God, we give thanks for your powerful inspirations. We give thanks for your guidance. In this moment, we are committed to stepping forward into a new life. Today, we die of the old and are welcoming in the new life. We are living masters. We are creative. We can sing, we can write, we can do and be anything because it's how you've created us to be. And if we forget, we also will create inspirations from you, Father, Mother, God, and from each other to support ourselves through these moments of doubt. And so it is.